Hello everyone, Source Codex here, aka Jazz Fusion Guy, and the subject of today's video is going to be progressive rock albums that have stood the test of time. And I'm just going to go through the ones that I think are important to have if you don't have them already. Now, some of you might be thinking, he's doing a video about progressive rock. Why is there a picture of Jimi Hendrix here? Well, I was cruising around the road today listening to YouTube, streaming through my car, and thinking about doing this video. And then I came across listening to this song right here, 1983, A Merman I Should Turn to Be. You know, if anybody has listened to that, they should realize there's a huge amount of progressive rock happening there. And I think Jimmy was probably going to be headed in that direction, as well as jazz rock fusion, if he had survived. He had that art rock progressive sense about him. Okay, let's go on to the ones I highly recommend. In the background, you may be hearing Modest Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition. Well, Emerson, Lake and Palmer did that as a release, covered that piece. It was actually my first real exposure to classical music. I hate to admit it, but such is true. You know, I had all of the ELP albums that came out. I've listened to them many times. But the one to me that is just solid, if you want to hear progressive rock at its height by ELP, you need to get Tarkus. What an incredible release. That first side of the album, the Tarkus with all its parts, just amazing keyboard work by Keith Emerson. Sadly, we don't have him with us anymore, nor do we have Greg Lake, who did vocals and guitar and whatnot. I'm not even sure whether Carl Palmer is still with us or not. Feel free to comment and let me know. Now, the other album, as far as progressive rock, that really blew me away. Of course, everybody's heard of Yes. And here was the Yes album. Now, they had releases before this, but this really put them on the map, in my opinion. So it's well worth having that. And then we've got Yes, Fragile. This is probably the release they're most well known for. That song, Roundabout, totally amazing. But to me, the song that crawls all over me, that just moves me like nothing else, is The South Side of the Sky. I was listening to it today driving down the interstate, and the next thing I knew, I was going 85 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone. Whoops! But that's how this music can affect you. Incredible vocals by Jan Anderson, Steve Howe on the guitar, Chris Squire on the bass. I mean, I'm going to list the whole band, keyboards and drums and all that. I just won't. And then this amazing release came out, Close to the Edge, by Yes. if you don't have this and you say you're a progressive rock fan, you are not a progressive rock fan. You've got to have this release. Boy, as far as my guitar playing, I played the intro to And You and I over and over and over and over again. I thought this album was so cool that when I lived up in the Maryland area right near DC in a security high-rise with my parents, I decided to wash my car one day, and I had this album cranked up, had all the patio windows open so I could wash my car to Yes. Well, people complained, called the resident assistant manager of the apartment project, and my dad got a phone call at work, said, "What in God's name is all that music? So loud." And then I got a call at the house, and well, I was sort of in trouble. But I will never forget that. It was just great music to wash a car to. Thank you. Now, members in the Yes Band went on to release other really fine albums. The Story of I by Pat Moraz, keyboardist, synthesizer player. Really cool. You need to have it in your collection. And then, oh my gosh, Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water. What an awesome release. I have so much history with listening to this. In fact, my next door neighbor when I was at NC State, he had the highest end home stereo system that I've ever seen in my life. He had these tower speakers with electrostatic ceramic things. He didn't have any speakers or codes or anything, but that thing was so loud and so clear and so crisp. And he was so paranoid when we would go back home to the DC area. He lived in Virginia, I lived in Maryland. He didn't want to leave it in his apartment. So he would put the left speaker in his car, and I'd put the right speaker in my car. When we'd go home for Christmas, I'd drop it off at his house. But every night I would go over to his house and we would crank this up and just chill out. It was our ritual. Lots of great memories. Okay, what about some other progressive rock? Well, I'm going to go right to the band that blew me out of the water. It didn't last very long, but what an incredible progressive rock act coming out of America. And that would be, let me move my goodies here. Oh, and here we go. That would be Happy the Man. I've met the guitarist, Stan Whitaker, several times. Once in Raleigh, once in Durham on their comeback tour. But when I first heard this music by this band, these two albums, I was transported into another world. I'd never heard music like this. If you're a progressive rock fan, you need to have these releases. And here they are, Happy the Man, self-titled, their first release. Kit Watkins here, amazing keyboard player. Second release, Crafty Hands. The song Service with a Smile, I used to do workouts to it. I set it on repeat, and I actually did some kind of karate Tai Chi stuff. I don't know. But anyway, You got Happy the Man Live, Happy the Man Better Late. This was an album that came out after Arista dropped him. Here is kind of pre-ish Happy the Man beginnings. And then, of course, Kit Watkins left the group. Everybody left after the group got dumped by Arista. And I recommend this album if you want to hear Kit Watkins doing what he does so well. Also, I recommend Sunstruck. And we keep going. And A Different View. This is Kit Watkins' interpretations of classical pieces, which is great. Now you know Happy the Man got back together again. And here is their release, The Muse Awakens. And members of Happy the Man have gone on to do other things, like this release, Oblivion Sun. Okay, so that's enough about Happy the Man. Who shall I talk about next? Well, a guy that some people might think is not progressive rock, but I do. Steve Tibbetts. Look at this artwork on this LP. Steve Tibbetts did this. Amazing. Just so trippy. When I saw this at the local record store, this LP, the owner, I said, what is this stuff like? The owner said, man, you're going to love it. So I bought it, and he was absolutely right. Now, when this got released on ECM, look at the artwork for Year. It blows. But anyway, I highly recommend this if you are into progressive guitar with effects, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, treated guitar, wonderful percussion. And these releases are not in the order that I'm showing you. Steve Tibbetts. Gosh, I forgot the name of this. The Fall of Us All. Another great release. Steve Tibbetts' Big Map idea. I recommend you having that. Steve Tibbetts' Exploded View. He has very unique names to his releases. Safe Journey, Steve Tibbetts. Northern Song. Now, this is a very atmospheric, ethereal kind of release from Steve Tibbetts. Sometimes you'll wonder, is the thing still playing? And then all of a sudden you'll get sound again. Just very sparse, stretched out compositions, which I like. But supposedly before Year, we have Steve Tibbetts self-titled. So here's that as well. Okay, I like talking about eclectic stuff, eclectic prog. Okay, Horselips. How many have you heard of Horselips? Excellent group. I consider them progressive. Here's a nice 2 CD collection of their works, which I highly recommend. But if you like the Irish sort of jig with electrified violin and superb guitar rock, really moving, kicking kind of compositions, and very strong vocals, I highly recommend Horselips. Okay, on the other branch of, is this progressive rock or not? Well, Tangerine Dream is an electronic music band, but they get lumped into progressive rock because back in the day when art rock and progressive rock was flooding the record shelves, they didn't know where to put these guys, so they just put them in progressive rock. So this is my favorite Tangerine Dream release, Exit. The song on here that I think is just so cool is Network 23. And if you've ever heard of the electronic works by Gassman and Sala, some of the sounds that were on that electronic music for ballet or whatever, you will hear those sounds on Network 23. Underwater Sunlight, another strong Tangerine Dream release. And then you got to have Rubicon. I know there's a lot of other Tangerine Dream releases, but these are the ones that I decided to keep and have, and the ones when I sold my vinyl collection I replaced with CDs. Rubicon is like you get a feel for their seminal releases on this one here. And of course, Edgar Rossi did solo work. I like Stuntman. When you see these pieces of paper and numbers in my CDs, it's just a cut that I picked for a radio show that was on my website. So, really strong release. This was a soundtrack for a movie called Miracle Mile, and Tangerine Dream had all kind of soundtracks. So, this one's a very good one. People that used to be Tangerine Dream, Michael Honig, except one, on a now defunct label called Cinema. I highly recommend this. And here's some electronic music. Do you call it progressive rock? Well, it was certainly lumped with progressive rock. Klaus Schulze, he just died here in 2022. Sad, sad news. Another release of his I highly recommend, Mirage. X. Great stuff. And then, I believe this release came out after Schulze died. Dus Arrakis. It's okay. I like it. And you guys thought I was just into jazz rock fusion and weird electronic music. Well, no. I listen to all kind of music. It's all good. Okay, here's another band that first time I heard them, space rock band from Canada, which is definitely progressive rock. I thought to myself, whoa, this is so interesting. And indeed it was. This is probably the best album that you really need to have of theirs. Their next album, Surveillance, maybe half of that album, to me, being a critical music reviewer, was okay. But their other releases after this, not so good. But I totally recommend this. Wonderful album by an incredible band. Quick story about them. When they played at the Cellar Door in Washington, D.C., my prog rock friend and I went to see them. We were sitting in the balcony watching a really lousy stand-up comedian And we turned to these guys sitting with us, and we said, "Man, this guy blows." And they said, "He certainly does." And when the MC said, "And now, FM," the guys behind us in the balcony stood up and went downstage and started to play. I was like, oh, geez, we didn't know what they looked like. For some reason, I thought their pictures were in the LP. But when we were up there in the dark area of the cellar door, I guess we didn't see their faces. And they donned these sparkly looking schmucks that they all wore. Sort of reminded me of something that Rick Wakeman would have wore during his solo period. But the thing that I thought was really incredible about these guys, they didn't have an electric guitarist. They had a guy playing electrified mandolin, and he tore it up. And of course, the violin player, amazing. Cameron Hawkins on vocals and synthesizers, amazing. And the drums were very strong. Well, FM came back recently. I didn't go. I didn't see him. But they came to Nearfest, this big prog rock festival up in the Northeast. And I bought this. And it probably sounds good. I'm not really sure. Okay, electronical prog rock. Tim Blake, New Jerusalem. I cannot tell you how many times I have listened to this over and over and over and over. So trippy, so relaxing, just really good. Now, he used to do stuff with Gong and Hawkwind and all that. Tim Blake, Crystal Machine, I recommend this one too. This is not a bad one either. Ashra, Sun Rain. And I'm trying to figure something out here real quick. Yes, Manuel Gotsching, he just passed away. Just this month, December 2022. I was sad to hear that. But a great progressive rock release. Now, another band, this is the most I ever paid for any progressive rock, was this collection of SFF, Chick Verse and Freud. Oh, Lord. Talk about wonderful. Symphonic Pictures. I bought this collection just for that. Back in my days of enjoying altered states of consciousness, I won't talk about that too much. This was like my go-to release to put on. Whoa, amazing. The guitar slash bass player had a Rickenbacker bass that was cut in half with a guitar attached to the top of it. Okay, very interesting stuff. I think a lot of these guys are dead now. That's the way it goes. All right, another band you really need to get if you're into classical music. PFM, Premiata Forneria Maconi. I Own Chocolate Kings. I think this is a very, very strong release. I just love it. I had When the World Became the World and Photos of Ghosts, but when I sold those, I didn't replace them. I did replace Chocolate Kings. And the other release that I listen to monthly is PFM's Jet Lag. Now, a lot of prog rock purists did not like this because, hey, they bordered into the nasty world of fusion. And for me, what a wonderful blend. Prog rock crashing into fusion with bizarre vocals. I mean, what more do you want? Jet lag. Very cool. Now here's a band probably nobody has ever heard of. Providence. Ever Since the Dawn. They're like a proggy folk rock group. I mean, you can tell by looking at the instruments. But I highly recommend this. I bought it directly from Symphonic Music. And I bought a lot of stuff from him. I just call him up on the phone and say, hey man, I need thus and such. What can you get it for me for? And he always gives me a good price. I don't mess with his website. I just call him. So, here's another band probably hardly anybody's ever heard of. Glass Moon. They were a proggy / power pop band out of the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And the singer, composer of many of the songs was Dave Adams. And occasionally Jamie Glasser, incredible guitarist, he would play on these songs. I recommend it. You might be surprised. You might like it better than you would anticipate. Okay, let's go to another area, a spacey area of prog rock. I call it spacey. Yeah, psychedelic. Gong You. First time I ever heard Steve Hillage on guitar, I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And the Master Builder piece, I love it. Recently, I picked up the expanded deluxe edition of Gong Shamal. Recommend this too. And here is a great release. If you can find it, get it. It's a wonderful retrospective mix of espresso, shamal, and gazoos. Wing Full of Eyes. And the reason I like it so much is my favorite guitarist on the planet, Alan Holdsworth, played on many of these songs. So that makes this a killer release. If you like prog and amazing guitar, Gong, Wing Full of Eyes. I just bought this Gong live in Sherwood Forest. I was told it sounds really, really good. I'm a big fan of Steve Hillage, so of course I bought it. So you might check it out on YouTube or listen to samples somewhere. And there it is again, Master Builder. It was a killer song. And there it is again. Alright. Of course, you know Steve Hillage left Gong and he went to release some amazing albums. And Fish Rising, you gotta have this. There's just no second thoughts about it. Just buy it. Alright, Steve Hillage L. Again, in the altered states of consciousness era of my life, way back, I used to listen to this over and over and over again. Om Namah Shivaya. What a great cut. Gong Gazoos. Already mentioned this. Get it. The BBC live recording of Steve Hillage. Get it. Steve Hillage Green. Trippy, trippy, trippy stuff. The glorious riff. What more can I say? A lot of people didn't like this release for Two Necks and Not Or by Steve Hillage. They hated the drum machine. Hey, I didn't care. Just to listen to these compositions and the amazing guitar playing. And Steve's got a strong voice. It's a good release. Steve Hillage live at the Deeply Vale Festival. Again, another great release if you like Steve Hillage. And I just picked this up a few months ago. Steve Hillage live in England, 1975. 2 CD release. And the last Steve Hillage I bought was Dusseldorf, 1979. Another great release. Now I think a good segue from Steve Hillage would be right into these guys. Osric Tentacles. If you've never heard of these guys, please listen to them. They're like nothing you've ever heard before. And Ed Wynn, synthesizer player and guitarist, composer, kind of the founding member, still going, still kicking after many decades. You will hear a lot of Steve Hillage's guitar styling and what Ed plays. I think I have everything they ever put out. I'm pretty sure I do. Maybe I'm missing a few. Become the Other. Waterfall Cities. The Hidden Step. A lot of these were sent to me for review, and I reviewed them. After Swish. Kind of a collection, a compilation. More Osric Tentacles. More. I'm not going to say the names of all these because there's just so many of them. This was the album that I first heard the Osric Tentacles. It was in a used bin at a brick and mortar store, and I picked it up and I put on the headphones and I was like, "Ho, what is this?" You know, the next day I went out and I bought a CD player. I didn't own one. But when I heard these guys on this CD, I said, I got to hear this the way it's supposed to be heard on a CD. So I went out and got a Sony 5-disc player, all because of the Osric Tentacles. A little back history. More Osrics. This is kind of a rare one. It used to come in this weird cover that I got rid of because you could barely get it off. Paper Monkeys. Earthland. Snapper sent me so many Osric Tentacles. I loved it. Live stuff. This is their most recent release, Spirals in Hyperspace. I'll say a little bit more about that. And The Floor is Too Far Away. Another one. Okay, you can get Space for Earth in this version, or you can do like I did and get the Space for Earth in the 2 CD extra version with an extra piece, which I had to have. Now, if you like Osric Tentacles, Tidal Flood, they are good. Scientific. And I will put a link to this album because it is for sale. I don't want it anymore. I have enough Osricness. And the other one that's very good, Dave Russell and Paradox. Very, very Osric tentacle-ish. It's for sale, and I'll put a link to it as well. And the last Ed Wind sort of excursion that I just picked up was Ed Wind and Grev Vanderloo. And it's called Tumbling Through the Floativerse. I wonder if there's any LSD in that band's history. Yes. Okay, let me go on to some bands that were sort of proggy and sort of fusiony at the same time. Nova, Vimana, recommended. Nova, Wings of Love, recommended. Raleigh, North Carolina's Ozone Quartet. I know the people in the band quite well. I sat in on one of their practices one time, and Hollis Brown even let me play her violin when they were taking a break. Woo, okay. Yeah, I did a special on them, wrote an article for Progression magazine many, many years ago. More Ozone Quartet. And if you're curious what these guys look like and sound like, just surf around on my channel. I have tons of live concerts that they asked me to digitize and put on YouTube for them, and I did. Okay, another band that's proggy and fusiony at the same time, Mongol, Doppler 444. They're from Asia, but I think you'll like it. Here's a great release to get. Finn Forest. Very proggy, but at the same time, very fusiony. So you've got basically 2 LPs on one CD. I bought this at a prog rock festival up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Potemkin, Nicholas II. Proggy, but fusiony. Iceberg, Cosa Nostras. I hate to admit, but I don't have a real version of this. This is a CDR and printed out graphics. One day, maybe this week, I'll buy the real thing. I forgot to do that. I have had so many CDRs sent to me of bands where people were like, oh, you got to hear these people, I'll send you a CDR. Well, I'm going to get the real version later. Iceberg, Sentiments, proggy and fusiony at the same time. All right, another band that's proggy and fusiony. This was like a super group kind of band. Bill Bruford of Yes, Eddie Jobson. He had history with Roxy Music and Brian Eno and all that. Oh man, my age is coming in on me. I hate when that happens. The bass player, he was with King Crimson. Yes, John Wetton. Sorry for the brain fart, folks. And of course, Alan Holdsworth. Oh my goodness. First time I heard this release, I was speechless. I played it over and over and over again. You hear the synthesizer and violin work? Amazing. Drums, amazing. Bass work, very strong. Vocals, okay, sort of, but a little strained, I thought. And Holdsworth on guitar, oh man, I became an instant fan. And then Holdsworth and Bruford left, and you had UK, no guitar, and Terry Bozzio took up the drums. UK, Night After Night, one of the best live albums I've ever heard. Oh, and what's this? A bootleg, live in Cleveland. not too bad. I bought this because Oldsworth was still with them, and you can hear him playing guitar on Carrying No Cross. And then Jobson went off to do his own thing. Eddie Jobson, Zinc. I would give this album about a 7.5 out of 10. But it's worth having in your collection if you're a Prog fan. And recently, Jobson been doing a lot of live work appearances, and this is a great collection of the stuff they played, just to give you an idea of some of the things they played. They covered a lot of different things. They even played Mahavishnu Orchestra music. Well, there you go. Okay, here's another set of progressive rock, Canterbury rock that I recommend. National Health. Really good stuff. National Health, Missing Pieces. Good stuff. And in the same vein, Hatfield in the North, the Rotters Club. Great stuff. And Hatfield in the North, self-titled. Again, good stuff. Yes, folks, I'm coming to the end now. More proggy rock, somewhat fringe, some of it. But Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield. Of course, this was the soundtrack for the blockbuster demon possession movie, The Exorcist. And, of course, a lot of people bought it because of that. I did not. I bought it because it's just amazing music. Mike Oldfield, Hergus Ridge. Again, quite good. Mike Oldfield, Omadon. Now here's a group coming up. Some of you may never heard of, but if you're progressive rock people, you certainly should have. This is Magma, Udu Wudu. I got it. I recommend it. If I own it, it's good. I'm sorry, but that's just what I think. Magma Live. Great representation of what these guys sound like live. Moving right along, Nectar, Recycled. Superb. If you don't know about Nectar, you need to. You just heard about them, so look into them. Nectar, Remember the Future. Good old synth player Larry Fast. He did a lot of contribution on Nectar releases. Ho-ho! Steve Hackett, Spectral Mornings. In my opinion, this is Steve Hackett's very best solo release. You noticed I omitted talking about Genesis, the group that he used to be in, because frankly, I didn't like Genesis music. I listened to it, and for some reason, all these people were like gaga over Genesis, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Some things just don't get me. But when I heard Spectral Mornings, I thought, oh, lordy, this is sweet. Okay, another pop rock, but progressive rock kind of group. What do we have here? Focus. The Hamburger Concerto. It should be in your collection. It's really worth listening to. Okay, we're winding it up. Has anybody ever heard of Kron? Well, they're kind of proggy. They're kind of fusiony. They're almost power popish. I don't know what other genre to throw out, but I like them. Their compositions are very good. Wiederhören. And then my favorite cron is Fly Day. Great stuff. That's all I can say. Great, great stuff. And last but not least, I don't have the correct album cover. This is Tonto Rides Again. I made this CDR, and I made the CDR label. But Tonto's Expanding Headband was just an amazing synthesizer group, composers. Their music was splendiferous. That's the best I can say. The reason I only have a CDR of Tonto Rides Again is because I decided to sell it, and I put it on Amazon, and everybody on Amazon was selling it for like $350, $400, and I said, holy crap. So I priced my copy at $250, and it sold. It sold within like a week, and the guy was ecstatic to get it. And I was like, okay, whatever, good for you. So yeah, I highly recommend, if you can get Tonto's Expanding Headbands 0 Time, that's a great release. And Tonto Rides Again throws in another album by them, but I don't think it was anything as strong as their debut release. A lot of people don't know, but the guys behind Tonto's Expanding Headband contributed a lot to the success of Stevie Wonder. His music, like Inner Vision and all that. Stevie heard about these guys, went to their studio, and they really helped him get a really good sound. Unfortunately, on his award-winning albums that the cats from Tonto's Expanding Headband helped him create, he gave them like no credit at all except a little small byline. And I think that's a tragedy. One of the guys from Tonto's Expanding Headband has passed away. I'm sorry to say I can't remember which one it is. Okay, well, that's my discussion on prog rock you ought to have. I know that there'll be a lot of comments, perhaps, of people saying, what about this band? What about that band? What about this band? What about that band? Well, you know, I can't cover everything, but this is a good start. I think this is a very good start. Again, and like Hendrix was on the cusp of progressive rock. All right, signing off.